All right. Okay. It says we are live on Facebook, so we will get started. Welcome, everyone. I apologize for the two invitations that went out the first one. Facebook would not let me edit it, so I just had to do another one. So that's what's going on. I'm going to pull up my Facebook to make sure we get any comments. If you jump on, please say hello and ask any questions. I'll read them to Adri so that she can, answer anything that comes up for you, and we'll get started. So Adri and I were kind of talking about this, and I told her the first thing I wanted to mention was just the fact that, the horrible shooting in Texas. And it's just, I just want to take a minute to send love, send prayers, just acknowledge all this pain and loss of life. And I brought my hanky because I knew I was going to cry.
Yeah.
And just, I think, they're never going to see this, but I think it's so important to say it out loud and, send our prayers because it does make the difference. But we're just so lucky to sit here today and talk about this and have this conversation still. And, while people are going through the worst tragedy of their lives. So, I just know I'm very honored and privileged to sit here today and be able to share this stuff with you. So I promise I'll stop crying, but
it's understandable though.
I mean, anyway, okay. So sending them love and prayers, and we'll get started. Just a fun way to get to know Adri. These are not my questions I came up with. It's from the Actors Studio. I think the host is James Lipton, but I think it's just a great way to get to know you, Adri, and kind of have a fun way to, be an icebreaker. And if anyone's popping on, you can just pop in and you won't have missed anything yet. We'll just, we're just warming up here.
Okay.
So, all right, the first question is, what is your favorite word?
Oh, right off the bat, my favorite word. Lately, it's been relax because I have a hard time relaxing.
I love that. Yes. What is your least favorite word?
Least favorite word, it would probably be, oh man. I'm saying this because I have a toddler.
Yeah.
No. No, hearing that from him, just do something. No,
yeah. Yep. Very triggering.
Yes.
What turns you on?
Definitely, I would say scent, things that smell good.
Yes. Yeah, love a good scent. What turns you off?
Definitely things that do not smell good. I'm saying the first thing that comes to top of my head.
Yeah. What's your favorite cuss word? Feel free to say it, don't say it. I think we're all adults in here, so if you're comfortable with.
I will say I don't mean to, but sometimes the F word tends to come out a lot.
Yeah, just rolls off the tongue so easily, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What sound do you love?
What
sound do you love?
Oh, what sound? Definitely, I always play lo-fi. So any of those soft beats, I love playing it, and I listen to it daily.
Yes. What sound do you hate?
Anything. I would say anything cringeworthy, nails on the board, things like that. I cannot deal with.
Nail files. Or
yeah, anything that's being dragged across a wall or counter or something. I cannot do. I cannot deal with those sounds. I'm thinking about it. My son does that sometimes.
The hairs on my arms are standing up.
Yeah.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
That is a good one. I would say probably I'll go with my childhood thing, and that was being an actress.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. See that. That'll be good. That'll be maybe your one day plan.
I know. So I kind of get to do it on Instagram and stuff now.
Yeah. Your reels are pretty close. So I think you're good.
Thing.
What profession would you not like to do?
Which profession? Probably, even though I'm in the service industry, I could not do anything like waitressing or anything just because I see how people act. I cannot deal with that. So yeah, I cannot. But I do salute those that can do it, and I always like to tip as much so as much as I can whenever I go out, because I feel for them.
Yeah. It's crazy what people act. Last question. If heaven exists and you reach the pearly gates, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive?
I would love to say that you are amazing, or like you've done your life's work, or you've done what I want you to accomplish. Something along those lines.
Yeah, that is a powerful one. So speaking of life's work and what you want to accomplish, I'd love for you to introduce yourself properly, tell us your magic and all those good things.
Absolutely. Well, first off, I'm Adriana. I go by the Lazy Millennial. I like introduce myself as Lazy Millennial first. But anyway, I go by the Lazy Millennial. What I do with that through that company is help small business owners duplicate themselves all through documentation so they can scale and build with ease. So
yay. Yeah. And I'm pulling up my Facebook to get it refreshed. Okay, here we are. Just make it check and see any comments. So there is a delay. So if you hop on, leave a comment and I'll read it. But I do want to give a little bit of context to, us talking in this whole thing, because I just think it's so important. I didn't know if you're going to mention it in your introduction or not, so I didn't repeat it. But side note, my 3 daughters are really into the Titanic right now and learning about it. We've got all these books about it. And of course, it's the iceberg is the thing. So, with your initial business when you started, you were a VA, and now you do something totally different. And my background started in bookkeeping, and now I've morphed that into something else. And I think it's this beautiful reminder with the iceberg of the VA and the bookkeeping services are the top of the iceberg that we see above the water, and then everything under the water, this big portion that is the huge thing that's going to bring down the boat is or not bring down the boat is underneath. And I think that's where you are with your services now. And I'm the same way. So I love this. That's just an analogy that came to mind, and that I wanted to share with people because it kind of shows your path. And I know, speaking personally, and this is probably true for you, but that having that background and starting with the VA, you serve people so much better because you have that in the nitty gritty, nuts and bolts, lift up the hood and see what's going on, understanding. And so I just wanted to let people know that, that's your background and where you come from. And so I think it's just, you serve people so well because of that. So
definitely has helped, because I learned a whole lot being a VA and then transitioned to now. Technically, I call myself an online operations manager. I'm still gambling what exactly I do and what I am. So I'm still figuring out those terms.
I know, and people some people know one term and some people don't know another term. So it's just but we talked about a few different topics to talk about today, and we landed on behind the scenes of kind of the framework to set up when you were scaling. And so I just want to know why did you choose that one? Why is it important to you, and something that you wanted to speak to today?
Oh gosh. Okay, so I chose this because like Jordan, you just mentioned, I started as a virtual assistant. And when I was a virtual assistant, I didn't really have any clear pathways on what exactly I want to do with it. I was just okay, I'm a VA, I know I want to help people. And that was pretty much that. And it got to the point where I started, first I started my business pregnant. So I had to hire help anyways, but it ended up being a situation where I was actually getting pretty busy. So I needed subcontractors regardless I was pregnant or not. So with that in mind, and me not having any clarity what I actually want to do and stuff, and bringing people into my business, having to help me run it and do things for me, it was a mess, because people can't help you if they don't know what they're helping with or for. So with that, it took until COVID hitting for me to really settle down on something. I'm just okay, I am working with 6 or 7 other people in my company. I am still in the middle. I still can't pass things on because I am stuck doing everything still. And I'm just I don't want to do this anymore. So I got rid of most of my clients, and I just kind of shut down pretty much so I can kind of get my own stuff in order. And
Yeah.
then once I figured that out, I started helping my clients that I was still working with theirs. And
Mhm.
yeah, it just kind of snowballed to what I do now.
So it's a very personal topic to you. It hits close to home.
Yes,
You were your
definitely.
basically first case study, first client for this type of work.
Right.
So yeah, that's so interesting because I love hearing that because as a service provider doing what we do, it's so easy to feel like, well, we always knew this and we always get it right and we always have the answers. And it's like, yeah, we have to figure this out. Like, what I do, I'm like looking at my gross margins, like, okay, well, how do I improve those? And it's
Right.
like I'm going through the same things. So I think that's just really a great thing to hear. And obviously this is an important topic. So where do we start? When I think of scaling, I have like a certain picture in my head of what that looks like, who that business person is, all that. But I think it really encompasses way more than we think. So can you kind of tell us what you mean by scaling and who that applies to?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually one of my favorite things to talk about because scaling, like I know for myself at first, I was thinking like it was just money because people are always constantly talking about, oh, like I made this or I can make this or do this at third. So like I just figured scaling this meant once I hit a particular amount in business, I'm technically like scaling or I'm building or something, but that cannot be the furthest from the truth. Like money is a part of it, but like I tell people like the analogy, like anybody can make money. It's just the sustainability that actually matters.
Yeah,
So like
right,
the sustaining and making money is a part of scaling.
right,
So like once you're at the point where you can't do everything, like you've exhausted like setting up automations and doing things physically by yourself, then it's time for you to hit that next cycle. So like a lot of times people will scale their businesses. I was one of them. So I say that I'm mainly
yeah.
talking about
Like, it
myself.
was me.
So like I was scaling my business, but like my income wasn't matching the amount of work that needed to be done. So like I'm growing my company, which is cool, but like I wasn't making the capital that was needed. I didn't have enough in place in my own business for me to even like justify actually hiring some of the people too. So like
Mhm.
I didn't exhaust all my options before I decided to scale. So like
Yeah,
I was just scaling just for the sake of, oh, I'm getting more clients and not necessarily
right.
like, oh, did I go through all this processes and all this good stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. Intentional and sustainable growth. And
Right.
yeah, I think that's just such a great point. Because even if you're not technically scaling, it's like, well, that's great. This is still applicable because then you'll know what to do ahead of time. And, a lot of people grow really fast and they're just like, it's just the snowball effect. And they're just, it's just a trade-off, growing fast or
Right.
growing slow. You have more time when you're growing slow to set up these systems and processes, and then growing fast, it's like, well, the trade-off is it just might be a little messier and you're just kind of figuring it out along the way. But either way, I think this is super applicable to everyone. Even if you're not technically scaling, you just started your business or whatever, like this is great to hear. Starting a strong foundation, like congratulations, you're way farther ahead than most people. So
Right.
where do we start with this conversation? What's the first kind of behind the scenes look?
Okay, so the very first thing, whenever you're trying to scale or like you're starting your business, so I kind of go against some of the popular advice. Like I know people say like make sure you find your target audience, like make sure you do this, that, and the third first. Yeah, that's important, but like more necessarily, you want to actually know like who's in your area now. So like I usually tell people like it's okay to test out different audiences or different people. So like first, just getting started on your business, like figuring out what you want to do and testing that stuff out. Like I would say once it's kind of set in stone because like you don't want to try to build one thing. Like for myself, like I started as a general admin virtual assistant, and I started doing social media management, and I started building websites. Like I wasn't
Mhm.
sturdy. So like find something that you like doing, do that for a few months, see how you're liking that process. If it's something you can see yourself doing, cool. Like that's where you kind of like that'll be like your bottom line because we're gonna end up changing or down the line. Like I didn't see
Yeah,
myself doing this, but
yeah,
overall, like I knew I wanted to kind of be in this realm and I knew I wanted to help people in some kind of way. So starting out there, figuring out what you want to do. And then also too, figuring out what else I was about to say for scaling. Once you
no, I'm
figure out
taking
what you want to
notes. So
do,
I get
figure
all
out
this.
like the foundational pieces. And by that, like figuring out things like I call that personal SOPs, but like your goal setting. So like if you want to I'll just say 10K because that's like the popular thing I always see. Like people want to make 10K in a month. Like, hey, you want to make $10,000 in 1 month and make that consistently. Like figure out the pathway for that. So like mapping out the processes for that. And by processes, step-by-step actions. So like you're gonna figure out, okay, I want to make 10K. I do this service, currently valued at this. How many people do I need to have a month to actually make 10,000? So you're gonna figure out like the bottom line stuff. So like you have that done, then you can go ahead and start mapping out like the marketing. So like if you don't have a target market yet, that's totally fine. Like you can just talk about the solution that you provide and just kind of see who kind of gravitates towards it, work with those people, and then after you work with them or whatever happens, you can be like, I actually don't like working with these kind of people. Let me try to find something else. But like it's going to be a matter of testing things out. And like with scaling, it's literally every level. You're going to be testing new things. You may change your business model a little bit, but overall, it starts with the foundational. What kind of service do I offer? Like, what is the thing that the transformation? There we go. That's what I was looking for. What is the transformation I'm providing? And what kind of things do I need to have set up in order to make those transformations come to life? So like, our bottom line, I would just start off figuring out the services, pricing, and then also like the tools you'll need to help you get to the next level. So a lot of times when people are trying to scale or like they're focusing on growing, oftentimes way too quickly, they miss out on doing things like setting up their business for automation, like getting scheduled, finding software to support like all their stuff, like just starting out with like your goals and mapping out the processes you want to do. That's it.
Yeah.
Like that's a big secret. Like there's literally no software. There's nothing you need to do. Like that's literally it.
You're totally speaking my language. I'm like, I love to strategize, organize, implement, and like, knowing where you want to go, backing into it, creating that map. And then, from there, like a lot of people are just like, okay, I'm going to hire, or, you start hiring and then you're like, oh, I realized, that happened with me. Like when I got bookkeeping, it was like, I'd always use a spreadsheet, and then I was like, oh snap, like I need like an actual platform. So I was like, okay, backpedal a little bit. We got to like figure out a platform. And like what had worked for me solo, it didn't occur to me wasn't going to work, for that. So, we're always learning. And I love how you're like, try this out. If you don't like it, like, because what I've learned in business is like, never say never. I mean,
exactly.
As a parent, never say never. As a human being, like I eat my words so many times. I've learned never say never. So, it's being open to that learning process and figuring out what you like and what works for you. And there's so much noise online of, 10K months and doing this and trying to hit this target. And it's like, really like what matters to you, what's important to you. We both have kids. So it's like, building that sustainable business that like, you see people go in this direction of what looks good on paper, what should I do, what's going to get me here, and then like they want to burn it all down because they're like back themselves into a corner with this stuff. So like I love that. So we've got the first steps of knowing who you are and what you do, and setting up those personal SOPs and that foundation. What next after that?
So once you have that, it's literally just a matter of testing, but not only that, documenting those testings and those findings, because what you want, what all scaling is really, like I just mentioned, like it's just a matter of seeing what worked, backing up, fixing that, and going forward again. So like when you're doing your processes, it helps that you write them down, like, okay, I am going to promote on Instagram and Facebook to promote this service, and I want to show people through video how I do this. So once you do that, you're just going to test that out, see how that goes, see what kind of clientele you're getting, see if you make money. This is where like all the financial stuff pieces too, like the things you measure in business, KPIs, all that good stuff come in with that. Like you're just going to literally just watch that stuff. So like the next step, once you figure out like your goal setting, you figured out like the type of process you want to do, next is simply watching. So like figuring out like what kind of followers you're getting. I drew a blank, but watching the followers, seeing the people that actually like click on your website or like actually booking services with you, or at least interest, seeing what they kind of do, things like that. Those are all things you measure, and then you can kind of get an idea of who you're targeting. And then if you're targeting people that you're not really necessarily wanting to, then because you have it documented, you can backtrack and be like, okay, I was doing this, so maybe I'll change this process, and maybe I'll push more on Facebook because I'm getting more of the good quality stuff versus
Mhm.
Instagram, like things like that. But overall, it's just a matter of consistently testing and monitoring and
Yeah.
documenting, monitoring that stuff. Cannot
So
miss.
I always think of like 60 to 90 days for this. Is that kind of your, what you think too of time frame? Like when people are like testing, tweaking, waiting, because
Yeah,
is that
that's
kind of
about
the
mine too. I always say like
time?
I say
Okay.
3 months, but I was like sometimes even
Yeah.
more or less.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I guess 60, yeah, 3 to 6 months kind of range.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's not just like, and I say, I've heard, I didn't make this up, but like the pick it and stick it thing, and obviously you're not just like turning a blind eye to it, but that's what you're talking about with gathering the data and then making those tweaks along the way, but you're not like completely changing like,
right.
okay, well now I'm on Pinterest, like screw
Yeah.
Instagram. Now I'm on, it's like you're not doing that, which that might be what you do in the end later on after you do all this research, but you're just gonna pick it and stick it for a while and see what comes up and tweaking everything along the way. Is that kind of,
Yep,
what
that's
you recommend?
exactly what it is. That's all it is.
Yeah. So, like, tell us some of the logistics of this. I'm really curious. So, I always think of like Excel for a lot of this stuff to like just document. I guess it would be like Instagram followers or where your discovery calls come from. What kind of things do you recommend, like
Yeah.
writing down and following? I mean, obviously you could follow a million things, but like, what are
Yeah.
your kind of top ones?
So something I have people do, like starting out, like even for myself, I am heavily on Google Docs. Like I'll
Yeah.
map out processes and stuff on Google Docs, but I also make it a habit to put it inside a software because I know I want to end up hiring somebody for something. So like it works for me. And yes, I could share the document, but like it's a lot easier moving to something. And when you're thinking about scaling, like eventually you're going to add team members, virtual assistant, whoever that looks like. So you want to already kind of start setting up things, thinking in hindsight. So like, what is it? Did I use the word right? You're thinking ahead. You're thinking
Yeah,
ahead.
thinking ahead.
You're thinking ahead. So like,
Hindsight is 2020. So yeah, you'll
okay, yeah. I was like,
yeah,
but yeah, but you're
yeah,
thinking, yeah, you're thinking in advance. So like, even though you may do like a spreadsheet and stuff, like I say, do what works. Like if that's what you use, like start document, like please just get started. Like start documenting that stuff down. But like once it's something that's more set in stone, I would move it over to like a software that you probably already test around and played with just because like when you hire somebody, it's good to have your own stuff in place. So
yeah.
just get into the habit
What
of that.
software? Like, what are you like for someone out there who's like, okay, well, I got the Google Doc, I have Excel spreadsheets. Like, what software?
I would say definitely project management tools. So like Asana, Trello, ClickUp, Monday, there's like 50 of them, but
Gotcha.
just picking one of those that you feel like you can use, getting started with just like a basic, giving yourself a to-do list in one of them and kind of seeing like how you like
Yeah.
it. And then branching off of that because like it gets overwhelming when you kind of move into something and you're not really
Yeah.
familiar with it. So like just starting out something simple, doing to-do list, like, oh, I put my processes here, like today I'm going to do this. Just get in
Yeah.
the habit of using it because that's another thing too. Like I used to
Yeah.
use software and it would sit for like at least 6 months because
Oh no.
I never used it. And it
Yeah.
was like it was a new habit I had to create. And I was just like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm too busy. I was
Yeah.
busy, but like I could have easily done that and saved so much time. But little things like that, like you kind
Yeah.
of pick up on. But like starting early, definitely get used to working in stuff that when you pass it along to somebody else, like it's already set and like you already have a standard.
Yeah. That is so simple, but it's so overlooked because like I
Yeah.
overlooked it myself, like it was just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna hire some team members and like we're gonna do this. And it's like,
Yeah,
like,
and it's like when
it's
you get them, it's just like, oh, I don't have
no,
that.
it's like it's so simple, but like yet simple doesn't mean easy or doesn't mean we do it.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's just a great thing to remind people of in any area of their business, especially even if it's, maybe they do have that one big platform now. But even just thinking as you're adding more team and scaling to different things, like there's probably inevitably going to be something else that comes up
Right.
that is the next thing that we have to like build that foundation for first. Yeah. What else? Anything else around that or on to the next thing?
Let's
Because I know we
see.
have 10 more minutes. So I want to make sure we get through everything.
Oh yeah. Honestly, I guess just to kind of like sum it up for that part, I would say like if you're sitting here right now wanting to scale your business or you feel like you have to scale your business, I would start off with one, like just making sure, like we said, making sure you have your goals and everything set up, like figuring out like what pathway you want to do. I like telling people 3 months because I feel like that's more digestible instead of trying to plan for like the whole year. Like by the end of the year, I'm gonna be doing this. Like it's overwhelming trying to do that.
Yeah.
So I say 3 months is good. If you want to do 2 months, 1 month, if that's more feasible, whatever. But like give yourself that leeway to kind of like give you time to plan stuff and actually map things out. Like what can you do realistically? So like once you figure out like your goal for like the next 3 months, then you can figure out the processes for that. So like you're scaling, seeing what stuff can be automated, and like by automation, like just making sure like email marketing, see if you can set up like a email to go out when someone signs up for something as simple as getting a scheduler. A lot of people do not have that. So like if you want someone to book an appointment with you, instead of doing the back and forth, because that's time, send them your link. Like that saves you time. That automates stuff too. But little things you can implement to save like even like 5 minutes. Like you want to implement that stuff because it adds up, especially when you start getting busier. And it helps when you have that stuff set up. So like you have your plans, getting yourself set up into different software and hopefully automating it. Don't be like me and letting stuff sit for 6 months, but
paying for that software.
Yeah. Getting started with that. And then when you exhaust things, figure out like who's the next person, not the next person, who's the person you may need to hire to help you out. Because a lot of times too, we're told virtual assistants can do everything, when in actuality, we need like an actual specialist for something. So look at this, like you'll begin to identify, because like once you like actually take the time to sit there and map out all of your stuff, you'll know what kind of help you need, and you'll be able to actually articulate that a lot better. Yeah.
So let's talk, like, just, if you want to spew out your favorite softwares, like what do you love to work with? Some of the common ones that you see and recommend.
Definitely starting out project management tool. I personally use ClickUp, but I used to be an Asana lover for like the longest. Let's see, what else do I use? I use a whole bunch.
It's like as a service provider, like our main cost.
Yeah, the main ones I would say, like, of course, email marketing, have that. I use MailerLite. That's awesome, but there's of course tons of them. What else do I use? I'm trying to think. I use Acuity for scheduling. What else do I use? ClickUp for project management, and I use QuickBooks for finances.
I was gonna say, what's your accounting software?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, yeah, definitely. I can't forget to mention that. I use QuickBooks Online for accounting because I always gotta watch my money, how that's moving. What else?
And this is just a great, like, what you were talking about with like, okay, get these set up, and then you can see where you need someone instead of going into a VA and be like, well, I kind of need all the things. It's like, well, I need these things. These are my gaps. These are automated, or I don't know how to automate these things. Just pay somebody to set up your email automations or whatever. But I think that's just super helpful to hear that you're not just like showing up to someone like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it, like not that sort of thing, but like, either, somebody like you walks them through it, or they kind of show up with, the fill in stuff. But speaking of that, what do you love to work on with people? And obviously want you to like promote your services here and what you do. So tell us about that.
For certain, definitely one of my favorite things is helping clients realize they don't need help right away. So like one of my favorite things is have help, like walking through their business and figuring out like what needs to be implemented. And sometimes they already have a team, but like they're just kind of like, what do we do from here? So helping the team members like get associated with things. But overall, I like the business owner to be like the leader that they are, because oftentimes people will hire all of these people and want them to do everything. And it's just like, we forget that we're the visionaries of our company. So like although they may be doing the work for you, like you're still in charge. So like you need to have, like, I try to empower them. Like you still need to have this stuff. Like you need to set like the standard for things. Like we're helping you.
That's such a great point, because it's like the VA's looking at them and the business owner's like, well, I thought you were gonna tell me what to do. And
exactly.
it's like, well, you were the visionary, you're the talent, the singer doesn't set up the stage and the lights and all that stuff. So like you are the on stage person, and these are the support people, and coming into it with that mentality. But so that's a great service that you provide. What else do you love to do?
Definitely just So like that's more so like the process. I call it process mapping or brain dump, the
Yeah.
brain dump service. With that one, the other things I like doing is helping them set up into software. So like figuring out how to space it out. So like they're always like in awe, like, oh, I didn't realize I could have like documented that, or I could have did that, or helping them realize like with documentation, like how easy it is to implement inside their business. So like by the end of everything, no matter what kind of service they do, I like to show them how to continue forward, because there's a lot of times people will hire somebody and then they're just stuck. Like setups are popular. Like they'll get set up in something and then they're kind of just letting it sit because they're like, I don't know how to use this, or like I don't have any idea. Like I don't
I don't
know
know how to use it. I don't know how to tell them to use it.
exactly. So like I'll help them with that and like show them like afterwards, like, okay, you got it for this reason. So like this is the kind of ways like you need to use it, or this is how it's set up. Do you need this change? But like actually helping them use something, and like they get really excited like once they realize they can actually do something by themselves. Like, oh, I don't have to hire. Like I actually had one of my clients, she cut down on hours with a virtual assistant. I know it sucks with a virtual assistant, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But
I know you're like,
yeah, like I'm sorry to cut money, but but like it's just little things like that, because she didn't realize she didn't need to hire somebody for that kind of stuff. It was just a matter of showing her how to actually physically use it. Like I tell people to after I do the process mapping, I help them put their processes into software. So like helping her with her processes, we map that stuff out, and then moving her into software, like with everything she wanted to get done, it makes it so much easier for like everything to click. So that's my favorite thing out of like all of it, like the whole process with them and showing
very
them
satisfying.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, yay. Well, I know we've got to close up so you can run pick up your son. So that's exciting. But before we hop off, I just want to thank you so much. I am so grateful for you being here. And you have one of those personalities that you're just like, oh, I just love talking to you. I could talk to you all day. But tell everyone where they can find you. I know where I see you, but tell us where you are and how to find you.
Of course. So y'all can pretty much find me on Facebook, everywhere pretty much under the Lazy Millennial.
Instagram, Clubhouse, LinkedIn,
Facebook group, Business the Lazy Way. And then I'm coming out with a new community called Journey to Laziness. That is the paid community where I'll be releasing all my new templates, workshops, and all that fun stuff. So it's a little separate entity under the Lazy Millennial. So if you see
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I've been seeing that. So excited for you. That's really cool.
I literally just made it last night. Like I was just like, I need to separate this. I need to legal stuff. But Lazy Millennial.
Yay, great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. And if anyone is catching the replay and has questions, please, hop on and ask your questions. We'll get them answered. But thank y'all for joining us, and just have a great rest of your day. Thanks again.
Bye, y'all.
All right. Bye.